welcome to yet another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 396. I am your host, Michael. Joining me, the usual cast of characters, Gail from IndyFights.com, Daniel from 4 Boxing News, and the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gent?
It's my goal all my life to be called part of a cast of characters. Thank you very much. Thank you.
For those who are new to Pound for Pound Boxing Report, Pound for Pound Boxing Report live YouTube shows, podcast, blog, site, etc. Talking all things boxing. The motto is when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. Bottom line is, if it pertains to the sweet science, it will get discussed. For those who want to find out all information, find out where to find Pound for Pound Box Report all over, please go to the site p4pboxingreport.com. If you wish to email us with questions, thoughts, suggestions, you can do so p4pboxing at p4pboxingreport.com. On the site, you'll find links to where to find the show, the links to the YouTube channel, links to the Twitter, IG, Facebook page, where you can find the show on various podcast platforms, be it Anchor, be it Apple Podcasts, be it Spotify, be it Google Podcasts. We're just about everywhere at this point. If you wish to donate, you can click the donation links that's on the site. Got a Cash Me PayPal donation link, excuse me. Let donation be the best nation. Wouldn't matter to us if it's $1, $2, $5. Um, if you have some spare change to share, please do so. It'll help the overall production behind the scenes. If you're checking us out on YouTube, please make sure to hit that like button. Please make sure to hit the subscribe button. It'll help the overall algorithms and get us closer to being monetized. And last but not least, if you're on the site, please check out the links. Click and check out the link to Beachbody on Demand. If you're looking to get your body right during the summer, Beachbody on Demand, or Body now, excuse me, BODI has recently changed. Um, Programs for all suitable interest. If you're looking to lift weights, please check out Lift 4 and the new program Lift More, which made its debut for public consumption earlier this month. If you're looking for strenuous workout to really push you, I suggest 6 weeks of the work in 645. If you The old school P90X series, they still work. Whether you're looking for a yoga-based program, BODI has it. If you're looking to have a series of morning workouts, I suggest you check out Morning Meltdown. If you're looking for a boxing specific program, check out 10 Rounds. That's a 6 week program. 5 workouts per week, 3 days of boxing based cardio, 2 days of weightlifting/resistance work, or at the very least, take advantage of the 14-day trial on BODI, and that is for 14 days you get free access to any and all programs on BODI, aka Beachbody on Demand. Let's get things going. Um, Not many significant bouts this weekend, but I want to take time to highlight a couple of fights that took place. The first fight, it will start with Gail, start with ladies first, always. Took place in Sydney, Australia. Uh, we all know the situation with Tszyu. He was supposed to fight uh, undisputed champion Jermell Charlo in this past January. Charlo had to withdraw due to a broken left hand. Tszyu wanted to get active, wanted to get active, I should say. It was a situation where uh, he could fight for the interim WBO belt. And he fought Tony Harrison, who said, "I offer my services. I gladly go to Australia to fight Tszyu." It took place, and Tim Tszyu kind of proved himself to be a boxing Nostradamus, if you will, during the pre-fight. He said that he would be patient, slowly break down Tony Harrison and stop him in 9. And it basically came out to be, as he did stop him in 9, got his attention early with some shots. Harrison hung in there with the jab, with movement and whatever. But you could just tell, Gil, over time that whenever Tim Tszyu wanted to step it up, there was nothing Tony Harrison could really do to stop him. And again, that was the case as he ended up ending Tony Harrison in 9. 2 points here. In terms of Tszyu, I think at this point you can pretty much say he's a world level fighter. But do I think he would beat Jermell Charlo in a fight? No. Charlo was in studio with Brian Custer and the Showtime crew. on fight night doing television coverage for Showtime, right? And afterwards, he was saying that, yeah, let's do this. Tim Tszyu, after the fight, was saying, yeah, Charlo, you're next. Charlo, you're next. If I'm Jamel Charlo, based off what I've seen of Tim Tszyu and based off of this fight, I can't wait because if the Charlo that we saw in his last fight against Castano shows up, if the Charlo that we saw in the rematch with Harrison shows up, I just don't see that Tim Tszyu uh, has it in him from a boxing perspective to hang with the champ.
You know, props to Zoo for his ambition. We should always celebrate a young fighter willing to test himself. The biggest name in the sport, arguably, Canelo Alvarez, did that himself against Floyd Mayweather. He lost, but he learned a lot, and it gave rocket fuel to his career. So the same thing could happen with Tim Tszyu. What's amazing to me after watching the fight and monitoring the chatter, watching how the broadcasters handled it, having Charlo there as part of the commentary team, very interesting. You know, the delay was such a disappointment, but it has turned out in their favor. Partially because Tony Harrison was willing to step in, Zoo was willing to gamble on himself, build interest in the fight, put on a little show for his fans. Everyone gets paid. Even Charlo, I'm sure they must have written him a, you know, uh, union scale paycheck for his commentary, right? Um, and now we're all really intrigued. Now, whether or not you buy into Zoo saying, I'm the man who beat the man who beat the man, because Harrison does have a win over Charlo, it's still a really intriguing fight. And Zoo is improving fight by fight. We can see it. He's got plenty of power. He's learning ring generalship. He, he's building his skill base. He's still got some things to learn. He likes to bang and gets hit a little too much. And that's going to be a problem against somebody like Charlo. But man, I'd love to see him give it a shot. No shame on him if he can't climb that mountain, and as long as he gives it a try. Um, but it ain't going to be in his hometown. As Charlo said, no, 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 I'm not going to Australia. So, friends, keep your calendars open. Late late June, July. Yeah, I get it. Las Vegas is a little warm in the summer, but you're going to be inside or by the pool before the fight anyway. So save some of your pennies. Get ready. Should be a lot of fun.
Not only will it not be um, in the comforts of Zoo's home country of Australia, Daniel, it will not be in a ring that small. Part of the reason that Zoo was able to get to Harrison is because Harrison didn't have any room to move. That will not be the case when Zoo fights the Iron Man, right? Um, Harrison has a good jab. Charlo has a stronger jab. Um, Harrison has good movement. Charlo is more athletic. Also, Charlo's more sturdy. He's tougher. He could take a better punch. And I would argue he has more pit bull in him than Harrison. Harrison talks it, but Charlo walks it and walks it more. He got that umph to him, right? You're not gonna knock him off easy. Both say what you want about him outside of the ring. You can't take away his will, and it's those factors plus uh, his corner man with Derek James. Um, the improvement that you saw in Charlo from first fight with Castano to second was drastic. Um, be clear that Team Charlo has studied Zoo extensively, and yeah, it's going to be a good fight. I think Zoo will bring it. Um, I don't think he's a fake or anything, but if you just ask me right now, I would make Jermell Charlo. I would give Jermell Charlo the advantage in borderline significant one. Your thoughts on this on Zoo's win, his performance, and the upcoming fight with Jermell Charlo at to Gail's point, more than likely late summer. Unmute your mic, Daniel. Gail, Daniel, can you hear me? If so, unmute your mics, please.
I'm here. I'm good.
I'm good. Sorry.
Go ahead, Daniel.
All right, could you repeat what you said? Because it sounded low a little bit.
Okay, my apologies. My apologies if there was any issues on my end from a technical standpoint. I was saying to Gail's point. Now I was saying not only will the fight between Charles Zoo and Charlo not happen in the United States, right? It will be in a significantly larger ring. And I was mentioning that part of the reason that Zoo was able to get to Harrison was because Harrison didn't have much room to move. And I was noting the differences between Harrison and Charlo. I think Charlo has a stronger jab than Harrison. I think he's more athletic. I think he's tougher and takes a better punch. And say what you want about Jermell Charlo and how he may conduct himself outside the ring and how he's a bit of a polarizing figure. You can't take away the fact that he got that umph to him. You're not going to roll over him easily. Um, he has that will, and you put that together with his corner in Derek James. Be sure that Team Charlo has studied Tim Tszyu, and not that Tim Tszyu is a fake or anything, and he's going to give Charlo his very best. But at this point, I would make Charlo the have I would give Charlo the clear advantage.
I would agree in that sense. I would definitely agree in the sense of if it's between Mel and Zoo right now, the Zoo that we saw, absolutely. You have to give the advantage to Mel. Because one thing I didn't really like about about the fight when it came to Tim Tszyu, yeah, he could get punched in every time, but you cannot go the Jaime Munguia, Jared Hurd route of I'll eat whatever punch I need to eat as long as I get mine. You cannot do that with somebody like Jermell Charlo. You could get away with it with a Tony Harrison, whose main weapon was the jab throughout the whole fight. But when you're fighting against somebody like Mel, who of the Charlo brothers, he's the one that has more of a chip on his shoulder. It's going to be tough to point that out. And you're not going to get situations like what you got in the ninth round, where I was very disappointed in the referee, the way he handled the last few minutes of the fight. He could have stopped that fight 10 seconds before. Because 10 seconds before, you saw that Tim Tszyu was landing right hooks and left hooks completely free of any defense from Harrison before he got to the ropes and started landing uppercuts. But that's neither here nor there. When it comes to this stage, Zook, he has a punch, but Charlo's faced punches before, and he knows what he has to deal with now. He's seen it live again, and if you're a betting man right now, I would bet that on Mel.
You can't come straight down the middle. Uh, you can't come. You can't fight straight on the center line and think you can get away with that against um, Charlo. Zoo looks like his dad. Oh my God, basically twins, younger twin, older twin, right? And he also fights like a lot like his dad. And in today's era, I just don't think he will get away with it. Not only based on what Charlo can do and how multifaceted he is as a fighter, I just think that the bonus here is James. Um, for those who don't know, I'm a senior writer for Three Kings Boxing. Please check out threekingsboxing.com, your source for pure unadulterated boxing information. We named Derek James as Three Kings Fighter uh, Trainer of the Year, and I think he is elite cornerman. And this fight between Tszyu and Charlo has been long discussed, going back to Charlo's win over Castano last spring, early summer, and they've got the book on Tszyu, in my opinion, and I think it will show whenever they get in the ring. Let's move on to us from Australia to England. When we did our recap episode for 2022, we I think it was a consensus that Diego Pacheco was our prospect of the year, right? And he fought over the weekend in Liverpool, England, headlining a DAZN show against Jack Cullen, and Pacheco won by 4, stopped him in 4 rounds. And I go to you, Daniel. You can follow up, Gail. The thing that I'm getting in watching this fight, I know we named him a prospect of the year, but the way he's been looking in the ring in recent outings, he's moved on from prospect to legit contender, in my opinion. Diego Pacheco, what, 22 years old? This kid looks like the absolute truth. I know Canelo is the now, Benavidez is the now, Caleb Plant is the now. Um, at 168, clearly Pacheco is the future. He's going to be hell in a not too distant future for fighters in that division.
Yeah, that is going to be a very very interesting time, the post Canelo period, because after seeing the way Pacheco handled this fight, not only with style and flair, he handled it efficiently. He never got into it, even though you could still say he needs to probably get some rounds in, but at the same time, he didn't waste energy. Because unfortunately, there are fighters or prospects there that sometimes get into fights that just where they just want to make rounds, but they waste energy in trying to make those rounds. This wasn't the case. And in the stage now, where, like I said, you mentioned Canelo is more than likely already in his third act as a fighter, in the good way, not the tragic way, luckily. And the young, with the youngest person being Benavidez, having been there, that's going to be an enticing fight in the future, because those two will scrap, and that is going to be very very telling. But this kid, you can tell he is ready to really put on the gas. It's just a matter of time when Canelo leaves the division, how soon he'll be able to get at least one of the belts.
I don't want to be prisoner of the moment here, Gail. But God, this dude look like he is the genuine article right now. I know that Matchroom has recently signed Edgar Berlanga, and Pacheco has talked about how he thinks that him and Pacheco and Berlanga is going to fight in the future. Uh, if I'm Eddie Hearn, I'm keeping Berlanga away from Pacheco as long as I can, because if they were to fight right now, I mean a year from now, 3 years from now, Pacheco will wipe the floor with him.
I'd be like throwing a raw steak to a lion.
Right.
Just ridiculous. That kid is the goods. A lot of us have been saying that. God bless him. He's proven us right every time he goes out there. He's got power for days. His command of the ring is excellent. But most of all, especially given his age, 22, he is so calm about the way he goes about his business. He knows what he's there for. He knows he's there to deliver a power punching show. He gets exactly who he is. Uh, every skill level he adds now is only going to make him tougher. And 22, I doubt he's got what we all call man strength by now. So that's an even scarier proposition. Yeah, Berlanga and his handlers should stay as far away as they can until they're ready to cash out. I mean, it, that would be a very, very rough outing for him. I like the way they're helping him build a fan base. Um, he is really a wonderful guy to interview. He's thoughtful. He gets it. He does exactly what's asked of him as far as that goes. Um, the Latino fans, I am sure, no matter where they come from, will embrace him. Um, and I'll tell you what, he's up training in Seattle with Team Benavidez, and he's been sparring quite a bit with David. There's going to come a day not too far away from now that David's going to say, no mas. Not just because the kid is beating on him, but you never know whether their paths are going to cross down the road somewhere, in a near distant future. And he may decide, I'm going to have to keep this kid a little more at arm's length if that's ever going to happen. But I can see him going through the super middleweight and light heavyweight division eventually like a flame through dry brush.
For those who have not seen Diego Pacheco in action, from a physical standpoint, the comparison you mentioned Benavidez, there's a comparison between the two from physical stature. Pacheco is an inch, maybe 2 inches taller. The difference is that Pacheco, to me, has better movement, um, more fleet of foot. Benavidez is a mid-range fighter who is at his best. He can move backwards a little. He can box. He can stand outside and box if he has to. But he's mainly mid-range coming forward fighter, right? Pacheco, he has the ability to move, to glide around the ring more. I think he uses his jab more than Benavidez. And am I wrong, Gail and Daniel, to suggest that he may even punch harder than Benavidez at this weight? I mean, in comparison, the points of in comparison, Pacheco at 22 versus what we saw from Benavidez at 22.
At this age, I agree with you completely. Um, and I think he'll eventually pass Benavidez by. Not by a lot, because Benavidez does punch, like mule kicks. And it's been nothing but positive for Pacheco to be in that camp with Benavidez' team, with their sparring partners, everybody who's there, because their sparring partners and their training regimen is all about the power. Um, Everything else falls in line behind that. So he's been talented enough to start developing these other skills before his power is maxed out. That's what makes him so scary and his potential so exciting. I mean, he at 22, at this point, he's mowing down the middle range opponents. They will find who they can for him. I don't think it's going to be too long before he really eventually runs out of cannon fodder, and he's going to have to look at the bigger names. Or I'm intrigued about how long he stays at super middleweight and whether he goes to light heavyweight, whether he even goes beyond that someday down the road. I know sounds like a whole lot of hype about a 22-year-old. As Michael said,
It's deserved.
Go back and watch some of his fights. We've all watched a lot of prospects, and there are some where you see, the seeds of talent. This is way beyond seeds. This guy is the goods. Trust us on this.
The power comparison is an interesting one at this stage because But Pacheco, this is more natural at this stage. I think at 22, Benavides was still trying to slim down. You have to remember, Benavides was a heavy kid early on in his teens and his early 20s. He got into this weight slimming down. This is the Pacheco that's naturally still growing into this. So that's even more scary now. When the time comes that he has to leave that gym, because I agree with Gail, he's going to leave that gym, I'll throw a dark horse into it. Have Pacheco's team give Kronk a call because they know what to do with a kid that has power, and they need to polish the skills afterwards.
At this point, given how he looks, I think he's fine right where he's at. It'll be interesting. To your point, Gail, if he continues the upward climb, and if Benavidez continues to win, right? As Canelo, let's face it, I don't want to say Canelo Alvarez is old, but I don't know if he's at his legit prime anymore. Uh, um, but in terms of the comparison between Benavidez and Pacheco, if they continue going at this rate, whether it's at 68 or 75, there's going to have to come a point in time where they will have to see each other, right? They're good friends, they're gym mates, but people in that camp are going to have to make a decision where it get to a point where these two are going to have to face each other in the ring. It'll be a heck of a fight. I would love to see it. I would love to see it. But in terms of Pacheco, yeah. Oh my gosh. To get as Gail mentioned, if you haven't seen him, check out the highlights of this fight against Cullen on YouTube. Check out some of his fights on YouTube as well. This is not hyperbole on our part here. Um, Damn good prospect / rising contender. He looks the truth. He looks the absolute truth. Let's move on to some news here. And we were off last week, and there was a lot. It's been a lot of stuff that's been popped up, including some things that I just didn't send out on the docket because it was just too much on the card, right? Um, let's start with this ongoing stuff between Usyk and Fury that has popped off in the last week. Whoever wants to chime in, please do. Um, whether this fight will happen, Fury, try to give as much backstory as I can. Um, Krasuk, Usyk's promoter, went on record and saying it was that he questions the bout will get made due to what they feel as Fury asking for too much at the negotiation table. Krasik claims that on behalf of Usyk, they offer a 60-40 deal in which the winner would get the 60% split. Fury came out and said no. In the video says no, I want 70%. Uh, take it or leave it. Usyk, in his classic style, went on video, big belly. I accept 70-30. Let's fight. And now, and as of last week on Friday, we're recording this live on March the 13th. Um, Last week on Friday, it looked like all roads were leading to a deal being made on as of on March the 10th, excuse me. It looked like all roads were leading to this fight being made for April 29th. The WBA made a deadline on May 10th, a 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time deadline. It's my understanding that both parties went to the WBA and basically said we've agreed in principle. Um, the WBA was like, okay, because if there's a word, if they heard no word that the WBA was basically going to mandate that Usyk fight Daniel Dubois, and Team Usyk was going to move forward to a fight with Daniel Dubois. Well, over the last 24, 48 hours, after it looked like the fight was a go, Fury has now come and said that made a piss about the fact that he wants a no rematch clause, and that has mucked up this negotiation even further. Um, Krasik has basically said that okay, he doesn't. It looks like this fight is not happening. The two camps have been back and forth over this rematch clause over the last 24 hours. Whoever wants to chime in and try to with their comments of what has become a complete mess, back and forth arguing between the two camps. Yeah, I'm just gonna leave it right there because it's been so much I can barely even get the words out.
Tyson Fury's moods change with the weather. I don't think he knows what the hell he really wants, how he wants to conduct his business. He's a mercurial personality, and God bless him. If he's got a cell phone in his hand, you know, something
He
gets out
keeps
there
moving the
on a whim.
goalposts.
Yeah,
He keeps moving the goalposts.
that's how he operates. You know, his personality. He's all over the road. Usyk is, you know, it's an interesting matchup because Tyson Fury is the butts in seats draw. He's he's the guy that gets the eyeballs on this fight to make money. However, he's only got one of the four belts. Usyk has the other three. So, as far as the sanctioning organizations are concerned, Usyk is the key player. Usyk could fairly easily walk away from this fight with less to prove than Fury. For Fury's part, if it's more about the money than the unification, which it very well might be for him at this point, you know, there are a lot of other ways that he could stage fights. He could stage them in the UK. There's that Middle East money again. You know, everybody seems to be willing to spend. So there are options. I have to agree on one thing though with Fury, that to hang this thing on a rematch clause is ridiculous. I don't think either of these guys necessarily need one. Usyk made it very clear after his second fight with Anthony Joshua that there's really only two options for him. He either fights Fury or he retires. He's got bigger fish to fry. He's concerned about the fate of his country, his family, his people. I don't know that you mentioned, Michael, that one of the things that came up in these negotiations is that when Fury proposed the 70-30 split because he is bringing in the lion's share of the money, and truthfully, that 70-30 split, as far as revenue goes, is pretty fair as far as the proportion of what they're responsible for. Usyk's comeback was not only, yes, I will take it, but and as a condition of me taking that split, I want you to donate $1 million to Ukrainian war relief efforts, which Fury could easily do. So we'll see what happens. But this is the danger of negotiating delicate contracts in public. People in business avoid this at all costs. Boxing is a business. The fighters should realize this is not the place for them to do this. But Fury is a complete loose cannon. Usyk is willing to engage him, and here we are. Their teams are having to try to deal with each other, comb through what's true, what's not, which assertions made by which fighter actually have ground to stand on, or whether they're just mouthing off at each other. Just don't buy your tickets, don't make your plans, and please, as we say in boxing so often, do not ever make non-refundable travel plans anywhere for any fight.
I said this on Sunday in the Twitter space with you and Bo, Mike. I keep saying it because it didn't surprise me when the news came out. Tyson Fury does not want to fight Alexander Usyk because he knows he can't beat Alexander Usyk. So he's doing everything he can to move the goalpost. 70-30 split. I agree with you. Even though it sounds a little bit unfair when you look at who has the belts, Fury's the one that brings the audience. So that's good. But now then you hang it in. Oh, let me just do this rematch clause. He's trying to find things where Usyk walks away and he can save face and say, I wanted to fight. They walked away. When in reality is he doesn't want to fight. He can't beat Usyk. He can't bully Usyk. He can't bully Usyk the way he bullied Deontay Wilder, bullied everybody else, because he's already seen that Usyk can handle somebody much bigger than Usyk is when it came to Joshua. And he handled them twice. So that's to me where it's standing. And not to mention the money is going to be interesting where it goes into, because we know where a lot of Fury's money comes from Mr. Daniel Kinahan. And that money is becoming harder and harder to wash as things go on, as the news surround, whether it's the EU or the US authorities started clamping in on him. Like, there's a reason why I said Fury has to fight in the UK or in the Middle East. Like, he could have easily had this fight in the US. It would have made as much money, probably not. But he did have a house. He does made a living here, but we know why he can't right now. And it's a sad state. If at this point, if you're Usyk's team, you know he has other things in his mind. You know that he's a very patriotic man, that he once was best for his country, and with the situation as it is, he wants to pay attention to that more than dancing around these negotiations. Because otherwise, then he's going to get stuck in that circle of mandatories if he doesn't retire. Unfortunately, it is what it is when it comes to Tyson Fury.
Sorry, I was on mute. At this point, do you think we will see this fight? Not just on. It's not even a question of whether we will see whether this fight happens on April 29th. At this point, do you think we will see this fight in 2023?
If we see it, yes, I do think we'll see it in 2023. The question is, will we see it at all?
Yeah, I'm gonna be in the no category. Like I said, just because of the way Fury's acting, I don't think this fight's gonna happen. Fury's just gonna wait to see who the WBC puts in as a mandatory, and he'll escape to that route.
Let's move on. It's because of so many news stories. I'm going to split this up between everyone here, right? I want to focus on women's boxing for a few minutes here, and I'll go to you, Daniel. Um, we know the situation with Katie Taylor. She was supposed to fight Serrano. Serrano pulled out because of injury. Well, Chantelle Cameron, undisputed junior welterweight champion, stepped up and said, "I'll fight Taylor." Taylor went to social media and asked for the fight, and the fight is a go. They're going to fight. Taylor and Cameron going to fight May 20th in Dublin. Katie Taylor's homecoming, and we talked about this, I think, on the last episode. And if we can't get rematch between Taylor and Serrano, Cameron and Taylor at 140, heck of a substitute. Cameron is the real deal. She's coming off of a win over McCaskill to become undisputed champion at 140 pounds. She's wanted a fight with Taylor for her entire career. They have history. They fought each other in the amateurs, and this shapes up to be a heck of a fight. Both are going to come. Both are going to bring it. It should be an outstanding. It should be a terrific atmosphere in Dublin. As Katie Taylor Um, her first fight in her home country of Ireland is going to be against one of the toughest opponents of her career, arguably. And I know Serrano. We all know how good Serrano is, but um, Cameron, younger, bigger, punches just as hard. She's going to be a heck of a test.
Yeah, this is a situation where luckily they made it work on the substitution because the lane, the homecoming was, well, it would have been preferred to wait for Serrano depending on the injury, but the type of injury that she has, it is going to take a bit. So it's good to get her still moving because
Has
we
it,
know Taylor.
excuse me for interrupting, Daniel. Has it been revealed what was Serrano's injury?
From my understanding, not fully, but it's not something that you can just brush off and just say like, okay, we'll just wait a couple of weeks.
Yeah. Yes, I will jump in. Yes, we do know. Um, Serrano has been battling a hand injury and doesn't want to submit to surgery. So far, she has been able to recover between fights and be in good shape, take on an opponent. It gets dinged and banged up a little more. She's got enough time out of the ring and she's good to go. However, after her first fight with Taylor, she took on a lot more damage to the hand than she normally does in a fight because of Taylor being such a strong opponent. So in this case, her hand had simply not recovered enough to be able to carry on with the fight. And it is, to me, a significant question since we don't have a lot of detail about the nature of the injury. Does she have soft tissue injury? Does she have, anything weakening in the knuckles? Some kind of borderline break in the hand? Your hand's a very complicated instrument. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And
Mm-hmm.
we don't know the details. And fighters do not like to talk about this stuff. They just do not. So
Yeah,
she needed more recovery time, and that was the reason for the delay.
yeah, that was always something in that area. There's been rumblings of Serrano always dealing with something in like the last I think 3 or 4 fights because prior to that she was knocking people out.
Well, and as her competition has ramped up in skill, they're coming back at her harder, and she has been forced to fight more rounds. She is among the top knockout artists on the female side of the sport, but
Yep.
these girls that are more skilled are making her go the distance. So the hand's taking more wear and tear. She's having to work harder. Makes a whole lot of
And
sense. When you can take down an opponent in a couple of rounds, your recovery time is just not going to be anything like the 10-round complete war she was in against Katie Taylor.
yep. And let's not forget, she does bounce around between boxing and MMA. And we know MMA gloves, they're not as cushioned as boxing gloves. So there's that, and that's what's falling into it. But luckily, in this case, we're gonna get a really, really good fight. It's still a good homecoming for Katie Taylor. There's a story there. It's gonna be a UK centric fight. My only concern is when it comes to Amanda, like if you mentioned that she's been staving off surgery, has it reached a point where surgery is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity? If that's the case, then yeah, she's going to be out for a good while. And that, unfortunately, is going to stall the momentum, maybe even kick this rematch out of 2023 and try to move to 2024. And the bad part about it is both of these ladies, they're getting older. We know Katie, she came out of the amateurs at an older age. And there's not a lot of time she has left to be in part of this division because the people that are coming up are getting better. So that's luckily we're gonna get a good fight. We're still gonna watch in the zone. Hopefully Amanda recovers to a point where we hear that she's coming to Ireland in the fall, but we have to wait and see.
On the undercard, it was announced today via Matchroom that interesting matchup. Terri Harper, who moved up from 130 to 154, won a world title in 2022. Um, she's defending the WBA junior middleweight title against former undisputed champion at 147, Cecilia Braekhus. Braekhus recently, she fought earlier this year, I believe it was. And up until her last bout, she's been out of the ring for a while. Given Braekhus at this age, was she 37, 38? Gail, what do you make of this fight? Even though Harper has fought at the lower weight for much of her career, she's looking really good from a physical standpoint at 154. And is she just too big and too strong and too young for the likes of the Brackets at this stage of her career?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so. Brackus is 41 years old, has
Oh,
taken
I didn't know she was. I thought, oh, she's that
yeah,
old.
that old, which, objectively speaking, is not old. But Brackus has been very active in her career, has fought everybody, has been in the game a long time. So, as we say, there's a lot of wear on the tires. Terri Harper does not have that kind of wear. To me, the key will be, does Brackus still have the power to threaten Harper, to push her back and to hurt her? Because Harper can be hurt. Can she be hurt by Brackus? Um, she just did not like how her career ended in a way that she didn't think it was going to end. She saw herself becoming undisputed against Jessica McCaskill and walking into the sunset, and Jessica McCaskill did follow Cecilia's script, so there was a bit of a problem. Cecilia went home to Norway to sort of lick her wounds, decide her future, and she, like a lot of champions, just couldn't leave it there. She wants that triumphant walk into the sunset moment. I am concerned that she won't get it here against Harper. Props to both of them, though, and we've been saying this now for a year and a half. The women are slaying it. The women are making the big fights. They're coming forward. They are unafraid to take on a challenge. Um, and it has been the best thing for the growth of the women's professional boxing community. If only the men would get a clue from this. And I do think they are, not just from the women, but some of the younger fighters who are willing to test themselves. You know, Maybe we can't teach some of the old dogs new tricks, but the young dogs seem to get it. And I makes me very hopeful for the future of our sport.
Take note, fellas. If you really want to fight each other, you will do what you have to do behind the scenes to make it happen. Um, be, whether that's Fury, Usyk, Crawford, Crawford and Spence last year. Um, if you do what you have to do, you won't get bagged on like you Crawford and Spence have been being bagged on for the last year, like Usyk and it's particularly Fury, like you being bagged on now by the fans. Uh, the ladies understand what they have to do. They understand their position in the sport. They're making the necessary steps, and we're seeing the necessary fights, and they're getting their flowers um, in the process. Yeah. I cannot agree more with Gail's assessment of how the ladies have been doing the doggone thing over the past year plus, and the fruits of their labor are showing right now as we're getting these big fights, and because they're willing to put it on the line against each other, they're making more money in the process. And I just don't see, and I see it trending and continuing uh, throughout, uh, whether it's the rest of this year or continuing beyond the rest of this year, because again, the results are here, the results are there, and the fans are paying attention. I'll go to you, Daniel. We were supposed to have a show last week. Unfortunately, there was some stuff on my end I had to take care of, but what we're going to talk about last week, and we're going to talk about it now, is we know the discussions about Fulton and Inoue was made official last week. Press conference took place in Japan with Inoue, and yeah, Fulton Inoue is going to happen May 7th. It's going to air live on ESPN Plus. I'm guessing that there will be a private group, a private viewing on Zoom for this fight among certain boxing media members. The thing is, Daniel, it's going to happen in Japan. It's going to happen in Inoue's hometown of Yokohama.
Yep.
I'll go back to the bigger men. This is what happens when you do what you have to do to make these fights. Uh, Kudos to Fulton for deciding to risk the belt in Japan. Kudos for Inoue for stepping up and taking on arguably the best fighter in the division. Win, win, win all around.
Yeah, this is an example of when negotiating between fighters can go right because, from my understanding, this was between Inoue and Fulton. It did not involve Top Rank. It did not involve PBC doing the negotiating. It was in Mr. Inoue and Mr. Fulton doing the negotiating. But you notice that they didn't do it publicly. They didn't do it in a bombastic way. They did it quietly, and now you have this, a good fight between one of the best lower weight fighters from Asia, in Mr. Inoue, and one of the best American fighters in Fulton. Because with Fulton, he had a different path too. He could have, they said, he could have gone and fought MJ to consolidate belts. But this is the bigger challenge. You're going to go into the backyard, and as Joshua Franker proved, these guys, they can be beat in their home country. Whether the cards will say that's a different thing, but he needs to do it now, especially with Fulton at this stage. You don't know how long he's going to stay at 122. So try to make as much money as you can before you have to make that move to featherweight. And you have to face your old foe, Brendan Figueroa, all over again. But it's going to be a very fun fight. You know it's big news in Japan. Like, I think at least 5 Japanese newspapers, that was the front cover. So you know that they know what the significance is when it comes to this fight. And if the lower weights are doing it, there's no excuse for the upper weights to not do it.
100%, 100%. Speaking of more news regarding the lower weights, interesting back and forth between Bam Rodriguez, or the camp of Bam Rodriguez, and Juan Francisco Estrada. For Gallo Estrada, Gail was interviewed by a local Mexican outlet, and he said essentially, and you can read the story on 3kingsboxing.com, he said essentially that based on Bam Rodriguez's last fight, tough win over Israel Gonzalez last fall, that he thinks that Bam, while he respects him, he's not the great fighter that everybody makes him out to be. In response, Robert Garcia, trainer of Bam Rodriguez, went to Twitter and said that if you don't think is Bam is that great, we know you're returning to the ring eventually in summertime. Uh, we'll be waiting. Uh, he basically put out a challenge to Estrada. Now Rodriguez, now Bam Rodriguez, he's returning to the ring in April. He's went back down to 112 pounds. He's going to fight for the vacant WBO title. Um, but he said but according to Garcia, they're willing to, if they win that fight, to fight to go up against Estrada in late summer. When Bam Rodriguez came on the scene, Gail, and won that vacant WBC title against Quadras, I think it was February last year, Eddie Hearn uh, entertained the notion of a fight between Rodriguez and Estrada at some point. Is it high time now that Hearn kind of reevaluate and update the calendar in terms of a potential fight between the two?
Sure, why not talk about it? Just like we were speaking earlier about Tszyu's willingness to take on Charlo, you've got another young fighter, looks very good, has done everything asked of him, and then some in Bam Rodriguez, same age as Tszyu, basically, who's completely fearless about going after the top dog. And then you've got someone like Estrada, very proud, who gets insulted about being taken out by this young kid. I imagine that didn't sit well with him. And he's going to push back. And that makes for great fights for us, because that is what leads these two guys to get in the ring together when maybe they should be thinking a little harder about it. The problem for Estrada at this point is, he's pretty much gone through everybody that, is in his generation, right? These guys have been so willing to tackle each other. He and Chocolatito Gonzalez have now fought 3 times. He's had multiple fights with some of the other guys. What's left for him? He can certainly keep knocking out secondary type level opponents, other aspiring guys in the division. But Rodriguez is the heir apparent. And once again, we're seeing this wave of the younger fighters say, let me test myself. How would I do in the ring with a Bud Crawford? And I'm not saying Alexis Rocha is on the level of a Bud Crawford. But when asked about whether he was ready to tackle Crawford, Rocha's answer was the right one, which is, I won't know until I get in the ring with him. That's what we want to hear. Estrada will control whether that happens or not. He has certainly earned the right to say, maybe not, but I bet he will say yes. And I would look forward to that. And I would travel from just about anywhere to see that fight.
Absolutely, arguably outside of Fulton and Inoue, a showdown between Juan Francisco and Estrada and Jessie Bam Rodriguez, arguably absolutely one of the better fights that could happen. Excuse me, at the lower weight divisions. Would love to see it. I don't care when, where, at 115. If they keep winning, let's hope it happens either late this year or early next year. I didn't put this bit of news in the chat, Daniel, but the official announcement for Canelo, John Ryder, took place today. They're going to fight in May in Mexico, homecoming for the redhead. Quick thoughts.
Like I mentioned, Canelo's right now pretty much on the third act of his career. I mean, luckily, it's not in the tragic sense. It's in the sense that you've accomplished what you needed to. You can do what you want, and at this stage, and yeah, it's not against Benavidez, but we know Benavidez is busy, and it's a mandatory.
And Canelo don't want to fight him. Canelo don't want to fight him.
Yep. And like I said, it's a mandatory. He handles it. The only gripe that I may have is that this should have been as much as we already seen the fight and we already know the result would be, this should have been Danny Jacobs. He was robbed in the UK for when it came to the mandatory in this spot, but it was going to end the same. You're still going to have the homecoming, and at that point, yeah, Canelo can pretty much just cruise into this fight and then just wait for what Mr. Bevel's schedule is going to be in September.
I'm going to open up the floor to you, Gail and Daniel. If there's any news that I missed, like I said, it was a lot that went on in the last 2 weeks. If there's anything that I missed, the floor is yours to talk about it right now.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, the chatter tonight is about the rumored unretirement of 8-division world champion Manny Pacquiao. Now, we've seen crazy posters floating around about some kind of tag team exhibition with Floyd Mayweather and joking around. But this is apparently no joke. Now, it comes through his manager, Sean Gibbons. We all know and love Sean. He is a fun guy. Some of the things Sean says, we're not 100% sure where they come from, but it's a legitimate source. He apparently did say this. He was quoted as saying this is Manny's plan and that Manny's desire is to fight. Wait for it. Hold on. Get your towel out. Conor Benn. But the discussion...
Mr. Egg on his face. Okay.
Yeah. Miss right.
Yep.
Well, as crazy as it all sounds, it's all being fueled by what? Petrodollars, Middle Eastern money. There is money for this. That is the only place at this point that would possibly sanction Conor Benn. So there are legally, logistically, no obstacles that would prevent it. There are no absolute barriers. Is it a good idea? Oh, for God's sakes, hell no. No. We do not want to see this. We do not need to have Manny unretire. Go ahead and do your exhibition fights. Make some money. Pacquiao is legitimately a one-man social service agency in the Philippines. He has been for years. I think he feels an obligation to keep doing these sort of fights to make money. But that's where he belongs. He's crawling into his mid-40s. This is ridiculous. Ben, for his part, seems a little more interested in still trying to make the fight against Eubank Jr., despite Eubank's loss. Or Kell Brook. Oh, for Pete's sake. But
and you can find the story on you can find the story on possible on the two of them, Ben and Brooke. You can find the story on that on 3kingsboxing.com that dropped earlier today. Go see it, Gail.
So keep your ears open, or for these rumors flying around. But truly, I don't discount them when there is this kind of money involved, and he would be among all of the big name fighters that would be drawn to the Middle East by this money. Pacquiao is arguably the one that would be of most interest. But we'll see what happens. I would really prefer he not do this and figure out some other way to get some more cash. And Conor Benn, frankly, I don't give a shit what happens to Conor Benn. And it would irritate the hell out of me to see him get a big payday just to be Pacquiao's foil.
Yeah, that's... you don't want to see it. You do not want to see it at this stage. Hell, we don't want to see it with Floyd's doing it. We saw how poor of attendance was in this last one.
But the Middle Eastern powers that be that want to stage these athletic competitions to draw our attention away from their human rights issues, they've been willing to pay this Saturday for a fight between, wait for it, Big Baby Jarrell Miller and Lucas Brown. Give me a break. And if
I forgot.
out there,
I was trying to wipe that fight from my memory, Gail.
do not, please, I beg of you all, do not watch it. Go ahead and look up the results after the fact if you like, but you've got to be kidding. You've got to be kidding. But yes, they are headlining a card in the Middle East. So there you go.
Yeah, that's one that you have to walk away from. Now, the main interesting thing that come up, it's not in the ring. It's actually outside of the ring because with yesterday, a good old friend of the sport, Victor Schaefer, has already made his next step away from Pro Bellum. He's now the president of Anthem Sports Groups. They're a pretty decent conglomerate out of Toronto. If it sounds familiar to American fans, it's because they own Impact Wrestling, but they're looking to step into the boxing game. So they hired Schaefer, who still said he's still going to promote Nolito Donaire and Staniosis. So he's still staying there, but this is going to be an interesting thing because Anthem, for their size, they're pretty decent at what they do. When it comes to marketing, they're pretty decent when it comes to spending money wisely in some areas. They don't try to spend beyond their means. So this could actually be a fruitful relationship, and in light of, unfortunately, the dormant state of main events and with the Bella still not fully running at a steam that I thought he would, it might fill the vacuum of being the major promoter in the Northeast, even though they're a Canadian company. So we may have to keep an eye on that.
Interesting developments involving Richard Schaefer and yeah, I co-sign your thoughts on Big Baby. That's why I didn't put it in the docket because just no. Like I've said before numerous times, I have standards and just nah. For those who want to watch it, God bless you, but I'm not checking it out. That's for doggone sure. Another fight that's arguably not worth watching. Want to focus here in the preview segment. Um, Gilberto Ramirez. Last time we saw him in action was in a loss, one-sided loss to Dimitri Bivol over in the Middle East. I believe it was in Dubai. But Ramirez, Zerto Ramirez, returning to the ring this weekend to fight Gabe Rosado, and I'm trying to come up with the words here because uh, who sanctioned us? Who gave this the okay? We saw Zerto in the ring last time out against Bivol, and even though Bivol in theory was the light heavyweight and Zerto Ramirez was moving up to from 168 pounds. We saw Zerto in the ring. He looked significantly bigger than Bivol. He looked like he weighed 190 on fight night. And he's fighting a Rosado who's past his prime and significantly smaller man. This fight is going to take place at light heavyweight. Rosado is still a 154, 160 pounder, in my opinion. Um, Again, who sanctioned us? Why is this fight happening? Why is this being shoved down our throats? Nobody asked for this, Gail and Daniel. No one.
Nope. The only ones who asked for it are Ramirez and probably DAZN. I'm sure Golden Boy owes them a certain number of cards. And there's just not a lot out there cooking for them at that level. They are continuing to do essentially their version of Showbox, which is their Thursday night fights. And then there is another one upcoming here in a couple of weeks with Angel Acosta. in the main event. I do not mind that. I don't mind those fights at those levels. But weekend marquee fights with DAZN, they are really having to scratch them out to keep in front of the audience. And Ramirez did need some kind of get back in the win column fight. But the choice of opponent is so unfortunate. I don't argue the circumstances. I don't argue Golden Boys need to rehabilitate Ramirez after that absolutely terrible showing against Bivol. And he needs a guy who will stand in front of him. A guy that moves like Bivol with that kind of skill. Ramirez couldn't find him all night. Oh, he's not going to have a problem finding Gabe Rosado. And that is the problem. Gabe Rosado has no business being in the ring. I get it. He probably said yes without hesitation. He's in it for the paycheck. He truly believes he's still got something to offer. But come on. Ramirez needs to pick on someone his own size. And Rosado is not it. Rosado is a blown up, barely super middleweight. Barely. So this is ugly, but your question is a little bit rhetorical because we know that somebody at the California State Athletic Commission sanctioned this. I hope it was worth it. I truly hope this is a fight where everyone walks away in one piece, that nobody is seriously injured. I mean, it is a recipe for disaster on both sides. It just, yeah. I think we have telegraphed to the audience. I think they get it. Our audience are a lot of smart people. This is just so many ways of wrong. I can't even spit it out.
Oh, man. Oh, this fight is leaving a really, really bad taste in my mouth because of everything you guys said. I understand that you need to rebuild Zerto after the way he lost to Bivol. I understand that the zone needs to have some cars to justify that price hike that they're going to inflict upon their subscribers. And I understand that fights need to be made, but somebody, whether it was Serto's side or especially on Gabe Rosado's side, should have just said, you know what, this is a little bit too much because Rosado, he has prospects. He has prospects outside of the ring that could make him good money. He's in the LA area, so we know he can always jump into Hollywood, be an actor, or at least be like a coordinator when it comes to action fights, action movies. There's avenues for him. There's no need for him to do this. No need. I get why Zerto's doing it, but even then, what do you gain from it? What do you gain from it? This is literally the light heavyweight version of watching Tank knock out. Watching Tank knock out Leo Santa Cruz. Because it's almost the same situation. Leo Santa Cruz at that point was a bantamweight that was blown up as a featherweight, fighting that lightweight. It's a similar scenario. With Gabe Rosado, yeah, he's probably more naturally a middleweight, but you're asking him to move 15 pounds against somebody who realistically within the next year, if he still keeps fighting, is good because of the way the divisions are and because of what he's already faced, may have to go up to cruiserweight. This fight doesn't make sense at all. Like something has to happen. Like something that the way like something that prevents it from happening has to happen because this has the potential to be really, really bad. And if it is not really, really bad, it's gonna you don't you don't need a I'm gonna say this plainly. You do not need a Magomed situation. People remember what happened, Mike Perez and Magomed here in New York. We're reminded to it every single year. We don't need that because that's the potential to be in this situation, considering not only Zerdo's size, but Gabe Rosado's career. He's been a fighter that has taken pretty good beatings in his career. This is just disgusting.
I have no more to add. I have no more to add. Rosado, he'll be there. He'll come to fight and whatever. But I think the fear from all of us is that he's going to take a significant beating, which he doesn't need at this stage of his career and really at this stage of life. Um, yeah. This should not have been sanctioned. Um, all parties involved, whether it's the state commission, whether it's the matchmakers, whether it's the managers and the promoters, they should not have allowed this fight to happen. They should not even entertain this fight, in my opinion. But uh, um, whenever I say boxing is bad, we'll talk about it. What to me this represents the bad side of boxing, and we have to talk about it. And I think I'm going to end the show on that unfortunate and sad note because, in my opinion, this is just a sad fight that should not take place. I'm going to go around the panel here. Um, Begin the show with ladies first. Going to end the show with ladies first. Gail from nyfights.com for those who want to talk boxing. For those who want to check you out on occasion on TMZ Live, let the folks know where they can find you.
You know the place. If you're watching, you see the place right under my moniker there. It is nyfights.com. I will be rolling out an interview with Imonte Stanionis here in the next day or two, maybe tonight. Let's see how ambitious I get. We ran into him at the uh, Figueroa Mike Sile card. He trains in Los Angeles with Marvin Somodio, and he's getting ready for his fight with Virgil Ortiz, a fight that, on a happier note, we are looking forward to on DAZN. So we'll keep that in mind and enjoy whatever sports you watch this weekend. Chances are it's probably going to be NCAA basketball, the one and only time people watch college basketball in the United States, if they do. So good luck to you who are filling out those brackets.
I go to you, Daniel, for those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk professional wrestling, for those who want to talk the Miami Heat, especially, excuse me, the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat. My apologies. Let the folks know where they can hit you up.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, you can find me on Twitter, Rockers99, RAWKZ99. Definitely catch me on there. And like hopefully we'll get some good news coming out of this because it's a bad taste in people's mouth, but hopefully cooler and saner heads will prevail this week.
For those who want to talk boxing, music, fitness, you know what it is. How to find me on Twitter, Brother JR76. For those who want to talk boxing, fitness, and fragrance, you know what it is on IG and TikTok, Brother JRSC. On the next episode, um, we will do a recap of this fight between Zerto Ramirez, and Gabe Rosado. We may also talk about Jean Pascal, who's going to fight Michael Efert on the 16th in an IBF light heavyweight title eliminator. And we will also preview which will be a loaded boxing weekend, the weekend of the 25th, the return of Jose Ramirez, who, let's just call it out for what it is, ducked, bypassed, excuse me, bypass. I mean dub. I do really mean dub. A fight with Rougarou Regis Progress. Instead, is going to fight Richard Comey on the 25th on the undercard. You're going to have another unification bout featuring two women's world champions as WBA strawweight champion, super bad Susanese Estrada, going to fight Tina Ruprecht. Ruprecht is the WBC champion at 105 pounds. Also on the 25th, uh, the grudge match between David Benavidez and Caleb Plant. Um, Also on the 25th, in England, the return of Lawrence Okole. He's going to defend his cruiserweight belt against David Light. So again, a lot of fights is happening on the weekend of the 25th, and which we will preview on the next episode. I want to thank everybody who's listening now. If you're checking us out on YouTube, once again, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Please check out the site. And for where to find us all over the podcast realm, be it Apple Podcasts, Anchor, Spotify, Google Podcasts. If you wish to donate, there are donation links on the site. If you're looking to get the body right, get your summer body right, please check out the link to Beach Body on Demand. So yeah, this is episode 396 in the book. For Gail from nyfights.com, for Daniel for Boxing News and the Inscriber. I'm your host, Michael. We'll see you guys next time. Everyone have a good evening. Good night.